Good evening. My name is Gail Witzelsteiner. I am a member of the Audubon Board of Directors, along with another great group of people. And we're here tonight to talk about the Bird Box trails. So Barry, are you going to bring up the presentation? While you're doing that, I'm going to let our panel members introduce themselves and let you know who they are, and then we'll talk later about what they're doing.
I thought maybe you should just since you're the master mistress of everything. My name is Margaret Lawrence, and we're part of this Audubon as well, and we are doing the 108 bird box, Bluebird box one.
And I'm Maria Benich, and I'm part of the weed that are doing the Bluebird box monitoring. It's awesome. It's been a really wonderful experience to start last year.
David Tozier, Gail's husband, and we've been doing 24 boxes for about 3 years.
It's our 4th year. We are really enjoying having the opportunity to, you can head on with this, to get out of doors during the pandemic and have a safe and fun activity to do. And David and I, felt like we crept around during the pandemic. This was the time when everything was locked down, but we still wanted to go out and monitor the boxes. So we watched the cars as they went by, making sure that no one was going to stop us for being out. But it was really a great activity to be able to get out and do that. We are interested in birds. We enjoy watching the birds. And this is just another aspect of that. And I have to say, this process of putting this presentation together has been really educational for me. I have learned a lot more, and I'll be a better monitor going forward based on the things that I have picked up preparing for this. It's always nice to do your homework, The reason that Audubon has the Bluebird boxes is because there was a problem nationwide with bluebirds becoming very rare. And the reasons that they did become rare is because there was, back in 1880, the introduction of what was then called the English sparrow, now we call it the house sparrow, and the European starling. And both of those birds are what we would call invasive creatures now, because they are aggressive and they take over the habitat of the bluebirds. There are 3 different types of bluebirds in the United States. We have the eastern bluebirds, the mountain bluebirds where Katie lives, and we in California enjoy the western bluebirds. I brought this little creature because I think this one might be an eastern bluebird, modeled after an eastern bluebird, but I just wanted you to be able to hear their pretty little song. My dog loves that.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, so that the bluebirds were becoming less and less common, and people enjoyed the bluebirds before that. They have the beautiful song. They're so adorable. They're really beautiful to look at. They're a friendly bird, and they were cavity nesters that people could enjoy watching. But then they were becoming less and less familiar because, as I said, those 2 types of birds that were predators, and also because of habitat destruction, which we hear about all the time in so many different species. Fence posts changed to metal from wood, and prior to that, many of the birds had just been able to make their nests in the fence posts themselves. And then, of course, there's the pesticide use in farming. So because bluebirds feed off of insects on the ground, that, yeah, I think we need to move one
Reasons for
more.
challenges.
Yeah, one more.
Could we just clarify something?
Sure.
If anybody wants to say something,
Yeah.
if you want to comment on anything that happens or as you're talking, please jump in, because the idea about this is for it to be participatory. So this is not a panel and audience situation. I want you to be involved. So if you've got some thoughts, comments, questions, then talk about them as they go.
Yeah,
Well,
ask questions, yeah. Colin.
apparently the invasive English sparrow has declined in England because there are fewer horses.
Oh,
And horses don't digest very well. And what comes out the rear end is what the house sparrow
Oh, really?
was feeding on primarily. Yeah. I don't know that they're endangered.
So
Yeah.
why are there
So-
fewer of them?
Thank you for sharing, Paolo.
we can count on you to give us the end story there. Yeah. Okay, where are we here? Okay.
Reasons for challenge.
Okay, we covered that. Well, I want to, before we move on from this slide, I want to point out here, look at the old fence on the left on the ground there. Those are the old wooden fences, the posts that used to be on this rangeland here. And then there's the new barbed wire fence and the metal posts. And who knows the timeline on that, but I thought this was particularly interesting because it shows why farmers or ranchers use the metal posts now. Those wooden ones are just falling over. But
They also burn.
oh, they burn. Yeah, the range on fire. Yeah, okay. All right, so people throughout the nation started being concerned about the lack of bluebirds. And so they created programs and houses that would then make more space available for the bluebirds because they were competing for habitat. And so they created artificial housing. They declared an all-out war on sparrows and starlings. And I will say that when I first started working, when David and I first got trained on monitoring the bluebirds, Ron and Barbara McDowell took us out and they talked to us about the problem with the sparrows, and they suggested that many people who are passionate about this kind of work kill the sparrows to get rid of them, to eliminate the competition. And I told them right from the get-go, I won't do that. I cannot do that. And as I've got deeper into this project, I've decided I still won't kill the birds, but I will get rid of their eggs if they're in there. But I'm happy to say that David and I have not found sparrows on our row of boxes, so it has not been a problem for us.
May I ask you a question?
Sure, of course.
So you talk about the sparrows competing with the bluebirds, but what about other birds? How does that work out? Because you must, I presume you see other birds, other species than just the bluebird.
Yeah, quite a bit, and we'll cover that coming up. But yes, there are a number of other cavity nesters other than bluebirds, of course, and we do see them. Let's see, the sparrows and the starlings were legally declared pests by the federal and state governments. So what that means is they are not entitled to the same protection that other migratory birds in the United States are. So it's illegal for people to interfere with or to have possession of anything related to the migratory birds. That does not stand true for the starling or the sparrows. So those people who do feel so inclined to get rid of them can do that. Another thing is that people who were concerned about the lack of bluebirds band together like true grassroots organizations do. They started working together, talking about what worked, what didn't work. There are lots of different types of box designs because people from throughout the nation started designing their own and then talking to one another about what worked. They eventually formed the North American Bluebird Society and developed on state levels bluebird recovery programs. We in the Central Sierra Audubon monitor 3 trails, and only 2 of them are ours. One of them, the boxes, are on a trail that the Army Corps of Engineers has down east of Knight's Ferry. So let's see, Margaret and Maria monitor the Highway 108 west of Burns Ferry Road. And David and I have Highway 49 south of Chinese Camp and before the big bridge over Lake Don Pedro. And then Ron and Barbara have the 2 Mile Bar Road east of Knight's Ferry. And they also have a yard near there that's from the Army Corps of Engineers equipment yard. And those boxes were built by the Boy Scouts. So all in all, we have almost 100 boxes that Audubon members monitor.
Could we have more boxes if we had more volunteers?
We absolutely could.
Okay.
Yes, and we also could have boxes that are monitored in your own yards or on your property. They don't have to be part of an organized trail. Like people throughout the nation who wanted to help the bluebirds, just creating a cavity environment like the box provides space for the birds to nest. Yeah.
Why are they placed in those particular spots?
Why are we along those fence posts? We have an agreement with the highway, Caltrans, thank you,
BLM also.
and BLM on the Highway 49.
Is there a high population of bluebirds in that
At that
particular area?
particular elevation, they are very popular. We live in Twainhart and we don't see the Western bluebird there.
But we do, just down the hill from you, and we are at 3,100 feet, and we have 4 or 5 of them that
Mhm.
we've been watching for the last year, two.
Do they nest there, kid?
No. I haven't seen any nesting. I put up a bluebird box that I got from, that you guys built, Tom.
Okay.
And a little tufted titmouse is checking it out, and I'm thinking, well, maybe, but so far the bluebirds
They
know.
do, yeah. I think in looking back on the records that Ron and Barbara gave to me, it looks like our boxes go back at least 25 years. And we have records from that period, but I don't know that they weren't in fact built before that, but I don't have a record of that.
You know what the numbers look like between 25 years ago and now?
No,
That would be interesting.
it would be interesting and I would like to spend more time with it, but I didn't prior to
Yeah,
this program.
You want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, I think the next one we'll talk, go ahead.
What's this one?
Yeah, it tells which boxes are where. Also that Ron and Barbara have 55 boxes that they monitor between those 2 sites. And Maria and Margaret have almost 20. Ralph Rutherford and Jean who's here tonight, did that trail. They monitored that trail in 2020 and 2021. And Maria and Margaret are doing it now and putting a lot of energy into that. We're going to make some improvements along those boxes because those were the first ones that were put in. And so they're older and could use some attention.
So while we're on that slide, Gail, if you don't mind,
No,
so that the picture there is showing the box in its lowered position. So it's down now and you take the nail out and you lift the door up and check it out. And in its normal position, you shove it back up and put a nail through these holes and it stays up pretty high. So I've got it down there checking it out. Anyway, that's how it works.
thank you. The first time David and I pulled off the highway coming back from Yosemite, I wanted to go over and look at the Bluebird boxes. This was before I was involved with Audubon. I just was really interested as a citizen. And I walked over to the embankment. You know how things look closer than they really are? As I looked over the embankment, I thought, oh my gosh, that box is so high, I will never be able to reach it to look inside there. So I think, Tom, it was you that told me, well, you have to lower it in order to then open it. So live and learn.
Can I just say something, and I don't know if anybody knows this or not, but can you see this? This big block of wood over the hole is so the woodpeckers don't make the hole real big, which I thought was real smart. But the thing that I want to say here is that you see all these bird boxes for sale everywhere. Wilco, Harbor Freight, Lowe's, and they have a little stick sticking out here. You don't want that. Take that stick off. That is a bad, bad thing. On ours at home, before we moved down here, there was a little stick, and we had a little chickadee that had a baby in there, and the scrub jay was able to hang on to that, reach in there, grab that baby and pull it out. So if you have any bird boxes with little sticks out there, little perches, take them off.
You said that very well, and I was going to say that later, that the sparrows, no, it's wonderful, that the sparrows will do the exact thing that Jean just described. So our boxes don't have little pegs to sit on, yeah. And also, it's not just other predator birds that can reach in the hole. There are squirrels that can do that, or rats. So it's better to have more space between the nest and the predator.
When Ralph and I did it a couple of years ago, there was a little mouse one day that climbed into the hole.
I think he comes back here.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah.
They have multiple.
Maybe you guys want to name it. It might be the same mouse.
There's like
No, they just
three.
want to take his picture.
We did.
Okay, are you ready to go on? I hope I can see that. I wanted just to show you this. This is an example of a monitoring sheet. I was hoping I would be able to read it better. But the types of birds, can you see it at all?
No.
No, on the left here, it says the date that we checked it, and the type of bird that's in there is a house wren. That's in box 3. And so the next column says how many eggs there are, how many live young, if any have died, the status of the nest, and then the activity as they go on. So in the beginning, in box 3, those are house wrens. And then box 4, those are violet green swallows. In the first clutch, and after they're done, let's see, they had a clutch of 5 that fledged. And then come May, those are ash-throated flycatchers that took over that nest and built the nest on top of their nest. And that's something that we have a lot of fun doing, is trying to figure out who's in this nest, who's occupying the box. And we can tell by the material that the nest is made from and what the eggs look like. So David and I are always talking about, what did you find? What did it look like? And some of the eggs are pretty similar. We've not yet found any blue eggs with brown spots, which are from the sparrows. And so I'm happy of that. But this one, let's see, in box 5, those were 2 clutches of bluebirds. And then there, at the very end of the season for us, June 6th, we had, I'm losing the track, TRES, tree swallows that took over after that. And then on the bottom, we had bluebird nest and then ash-throated flycatchers. So that's part of the reason that we clean out the nest, but we have to wait till it's really vacated before we would do that.
So the flycatchers, this is a question, have the fur in their nest? I always get this confused.
Yes,
So that was always kind of an exciting thing when you open up the box and there's fur in there. It's like, oh, it's a flycatcher. And then the
Unless it has
feathers
ears.
are the,
Unless it has ears, then it's
the
fine.
feathers in the nest are the tree swallows, right?
yeah.
And then, yeah, we find like lots of little white feathers. I don't know what they were
Yep.
from.
Probably from the
turkeys.
turkey ranch.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Anyway,
Yeah, very,
I suppose the brown-headed cowbird doesn't enter this picture at all, does it?
hasn't for us, no. What do you know about that?
No, I just wondered if the.
I don't fit. I don't think they could fit through the hole.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah,
so.
okay.
I was
It's like
going to
they-
say, big bird,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. That was good.
Was that
Thank you for
Laura?
Thank you for coming in.
It sounded like Laura.
well, the cowbirds, are they the ones that will lay an egg on top of other birds' eggs so that the other bird will incubate their babies?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I think that's a common issue, more kind of in the valley. I'm not sure that we have brown-headed cowbirds up this.
I've had cowbirds in Groveland.
Okay,
Oh,
okay.
really?
I had them in an open nest, you know, the open cup nest,
Oh,
but I had them in any of my bluebird boxes. They can't fit in through the hole.
right.
Wow, okay, thank you.
Okay, we can go to the next
Can I ask you a
slide.
question? What is the exact diameter of the hole? What should it be?
Keyword there is exact. They're not exact.
It's
Well, there
We
is
made these an inch and a half.
an inch and a half,
1.5.
Yeah,
because I keep having to put a new piece on because
mhm.
they get.
The reducer,
widened.
yeah,
like
they do,
that, yeah.
yeah,
You don't ever get woodpeckers pecking in, you do?
we do.
Uh,
We have one box on our trail that is getting so bad, the back has been pecked out
huh.
and it's getting to where we're gonna have to replace that piece of wood, yeah.
You know, I've had a real problem with acorn woodpeckers. I'm up in Groveland, and they get after all my boxes. I have the wood hole extenders on all my boxes, and then on that I have a little metal plate
Yeah.
around the hole. But the
Uh-huh.
woodpeckers get on there and they actually go around that metal plate and they excise the hole bigger.
Wow, well, that-
Do they store acorns in the box?
I have had acorns, yeah.
wow.
Because David found, when we cleaned out our boxes, he found one box full of acorns.
Full.
It just shows us how adaptable birds are, in fact, when they can do these things.
And in fact, my boxes, you know how the birds, so that they can climb out, they'll put like kerfs, they'll like put like little
Yes,
scraps of wood, right, so that the birds can climb out the hole. Well, the guy that was making my boxes was actually putting in a little wire ladder for them to catch the birds. I'm sorry. It worked fine, except the acorn woodpeckers, they kept, you know, drilling into the hole and they got into that wire and that wire was like exposed and it wouldn't have just ripped anything apart that tried to crawl over it. So I had him stop putting the wire in and use kerfs. They call it a kerf. It's just a little indentation, like it's a little ladder, but you just dug it out.
Uh-huh.
I've had a real problem with woodpeckers here.
That's
They're on every box I put up.
Yeah, wow.
what is the woodpecker's goal there? Do they get in? Do they use it for storage?
No, they just have a propensity to, they see something and they want to make a hole in it.
Okay, so it's just catchwood, okay,
That's great.
okay.
You want to go on?
All right, yeah, we're ready.
Thank you.
This is the, of course, the male bluebird feeding. This is a mature baby, if you will. But see what they're being fed? Those look like mealworms to me. This is not a picture that we took. I took this from a book. And so I think a lot of people put mealworms out for their birds, and the bluebirds have found that and are taking it back for their fledglings.
You know, I got a nice little video sequence where there's certainly these juveniles on a dish, and there are several adults, males that is, feeding them, and one of the adults has a bill full of mealworms, and the youngster's looking away, and it actually tapped the youngster on the shoulder, made it still turn around. What's that?
That's funny.
That's pretty.
In terms of the, I just read recently that they don't have enough calcium in them, and they don't recommend putting the mealworms out when they're feeding their young. I put mealworms out for the adults, but what I read, they recommend don't putting mealworms out when they're actually feeding their fledglings, because the mealworms don't have enough calcium.
Ah, interesting, thank you.
One thing that I have found to be true is that we can't really follow a set schedule when we're checking so many boxes, because they don't all start laying on the same day and end laying on the same day and hatch on the same day. So some of the birds are doing one thing while another box is doing another. So knowing when they're feeding or when they're not would be challenging. However, if you do a box at home and you're monitoring your box and you know what your family is doing, you would be able to do exactly that.
I got another question for you. Western bluebirds usually have two broods. Have you seen, in terms of time, have you seen the situation where one box has a brood early, and another box has a brood later on, which would imply a second brood?
Absolutely. Yeah, we do.
Yeah, that's why the males feed the youngsters, because the females go off to have another brood. So that's why the males get to actually do the work. So I think the Western bluebird females got it right. They got the men working.
What times of year are they likely to have eggs?
You know, we start checking in March, and then they'll go through, we stop in June, because it's just so hot at that particular time where we are. Some people will be able to check their boxes through July, but not here in Central Sierra. So we stop in June. And we can see 3 different clutches during that period of time sometimes. Doesn't necessarily mean the same birds, but the box itself could have 3 clutches. So this is for those of you who enjoy just numbers or statistics. This is what we have gathered so far since I've been involved with this. So can you read this?
Yes.
Okay, so the house wren is the first one on the Highway 49 box. And in 2020, we had 6 that fledged. Then we had 22, then we had 16 the following year. It isn't necessarily any kind of pattern that I can see at this point. The birds, I know that the weather affects what they do, but I also think that the birds, whoever gets first to the nest or whoever sings the prettiest song and convinces the female to start building the nest, will be able to occupy it. So the second bird there is the ash-throated flycatcher, then the violet green swallows, the tree swallows, and then the Western bluebirds are the bottom ones. So this last year, we had almost every one of our 24 boxes utilized. Did you also?
No,
We had one box that was utilized by Bluebirds.
And what about boxes used by other
we
breeds?
probably had 4 that weren't used. We only have 17 boxes, so probably 4 of them weren't used at all. But several of them had multiple clutches in them. But the Bluebirds, 1 clutch, 1 box with a very successful 5 fledged. So it was good.
Can I ask, what do you do with your data? Do you send it somewhere or?
Yes, I sent it to Cornell Lab.
Oh, okay.
They're keeping nest watch. Yeah, Maria you turn it over to me. And anyone who's interested in collecting data on a nest at home is welcome to send it to us at Central Sierra Audubon, or they can send it to another one of the organizations. I've read that the California group is also sending theirs to Cornell Lab through Nest Watch also. So that's just where we send ours. So I put in here double clutches, and I don't know, do you collect that data? You do. Okay, I missed it on your sheet, I guess. So you can see how many of the boxes had at least a double clutch.
It's interesting the different numbers of Western Bluebirds in the 2 locations.
Yes, it is. We've discussed that at length.
And Highway 1 has a lot of tree sparrows, but very little down on Highway 49.
Well, part of that is because there's a creek on the one part.
Yeah, so the
And those swallows like the creek.
And a
So they're
huge
there
culvert.
because of the creek. And I was gonna say something else too. What the hell was it?
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
the birds, it's a funny thing, and I don't know whether it has to do with elevation or what, but we found in the 2 years we did it that the birds on 108 were kind of like a month behind laying eggs compared to the ones
We
on
did,
49.
Mhm.
And we didn't know why. It's just they were very later. The very sad part is the 1 year we had some early hot weather in the spring, and the later birds, we had a couple clutches that the babies just all died because they got too hot, which was really sad. But you know, they started later and then the weather changed, so what do you do?
We can't control the weather, and
Yeah.
it really affects how the birds behave. Yeah.
Are they out in the open or under trees?
So
The
yes,
nests?
yes.
Yes.
So the boxes, so
You're
this
talking
is.
heat and stuff. You know, so.
Yeah.
This is the 108 corridor. And so the different types of Bluebird boxes, as folks have already mentioned, there's so many different styles. There's online, there's books. There's no, I don't think, perfect nest box. There's things that we look for, but you know, there's such a variety out there.
These boxes seem much taller, much deeper than the ones I bought years ago.
Right. I don't, these guys, you can comment more on that because we're using the North American Bluebird Society box dimensions or
Okay.
design, so I'm not sure.
So there's sort of a standard, at least a recommended.
Yeah, they have a pattern with dimensions that we use, but
Yeah.
the concept, you can make them shallower if need be.
Well, the thing I remember reading, and I've looked for this and I haven't found it recently, but there used to be standards for building boxes. And what I remember with the American Standard something or other society, you needed 6 inches from the bottom of your hole to the bottom of the nest. Because if it wasn't at least that deep, a predator could get in.
6 inches.
Yeah, and they build up, so you gotta remember that.
Yeah.
When you get
Especially
multiple clutches, I mean, we'll
Yeah.
talk about that, but it can be really close to the top by the time they're done at the end of the season.
You know, I have like 13 boxes, and I have them made by a gentleman in Missouri, and he makes them according to, I think, the Eastern Bluebird box. And mine are like 12, the box itself is 12 inches deep. So it's pretty deep. It's a foot.
Inside dimension,
Well, the outside dimension is 12
Oh.
inches. I've never measured them.
well, that's about what we have.
Yeah.
Who is this is speaking?
My name is Corinne Sarah. I'm in Groveland. I didn't drive over there. I don't drive in the dark, so.
Oh, no problem. We
Yeah,
we want to talk with you later. I just wondered who you were.
Yeah, you ought to get.
We want to share information.
Well,
I
well,
have-
also, if she has
Hang
the.
I have like 13 boxes. I just put up my own trail, so. But I'm at 3,000 and I have a lot of bluebirds here. A lot.
That's good.
on. Ah.
And do you save your data? Or do you
Yeah,
collect?
I send it to Nest Watch.
You do, good, okay, great.
And then, so like Jean talked about, if the guard, the reduce is on there to prevent other critters from getting in and taking the fledglings or the young birds out. We talked about having the boxes be deep enough again so that somebody can't come in and grab them. They all have roofs, obviously, because rain, snow, although they're not nesting that time of year, to prevent them from getting wet. And we drilled some ventilation holes up top. Some of the boxes I've noticed have like the corners cut out on the bottom. So I think that kind of might allow some ventilation as well. I think you also mentioned making sure that you don't have a little stick outside
The
there.
one side there, there's a gap, and the other side there isn't. So
Just in the door.
That's the door?
That's the door.
So we needed to
Oh,
get,
that's
so you
the
can
door.
open the door.
So they can get your fingers under and pull. So no perches. And then the mounting pole is what Dave was showing. And those are, we have actually 2 on our trail right now on the 108. And it's nice because you can pull it down, you can peek in, you can clean it out, do whatever you need to, and then put it back up and it's high enough and you can actually pivot it if you need it a certain direction. So a lot of these nest boxes that we have on the 108 trail, to me, seem kind of low. So we might kind of might do a little bit next year and, well, this year, I guess, spin them around a little bit and try and put them a little higher.
Do you have particular orientation, like north, east, south, or west?
Yeah, what we've read, and Ron and Barbara also said that for the birds prefer an eastern orientation so that they get the morning sunlight to come in the entrance. And then the afternoon heat is behind them, not right in front of them. These seem to have a
These are all Western.
Yeah.
Western orientation. The boxes on Highway 49 that David and I monitor, we can spin those around. So we turn them to the east when we leave them. They're not always that way when we come back, but that is how we leave.
Somebody wanted to say something?
Hi,
I was
Yeah.
just gonna ask if they had found any particular orientation that was better, because mine are all different directions and they use them all, so.
Yeah, I've read that east is preferred, but they do use them all. Some people have, and I guess Ron and Barbara have this down in Knight's Ferry. The boxes are all around a fence, so if you're going around the perimeter, some are facing east and some are facing west, so they're still used.
On to the
Okay,
next one.
excuse me. Hi, everybody.
hello.
I've been making boxes over here in Murphy's for quite a while. I've made probably maybe 30 of these.
Right,
And I just wanted to show you, this is where I did a vent hole here, and I did it on both sides.
You move the picture over.
You want to wait a minute, let me stop the sharing and get you on.
Oh, great.
Now I can see you.
And then on the bottom, I've cut these angles in to allow for venting. And then on the door, I have a nail that sticks in here, and then they're able to flip this up and clean it out. And then on the back side, the kerf is put in so the young, they can get out. And I also put them on the front as well.
Oh, yeah.
My biggest problem is acorn woodpeckers. And I probably made 30 of these boxes. I've given away a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so I went online to try to buy a metal ring, and they were just too expensive because I was just using repurposed lumber and stuff like that. So I used a piece of masonite and I cut the 1.5-inch hole, but the woodpeckers destroy these things eventually. It's just and then they're all full of most of them are full of acorns. So I guess I have a couple questions. One of them is, what height do you like to see these? 6 feet off the ground?
What I read is the birds prefer 10 feet, but in
Really?
many cases, it's a long way up when you're
Right.
out there. So I just go to as far as the pipes are and I'm satisfied that it's stable. But I have read 10 feet is what they prefer.
All mine are at 5 feet because I don't want to reach up. So all mine are.
I believe.
And
Yeah,
then the other, I had a pretty good, I've done this for what, I think 3 years, and I'm in Murphy's. And last year was horrible. I lost so many babies to heat.
Yeah.
So I developed this, and you guys tell me if this will work. I don't know. So I took a box and I created, can you see that okay? I created an
Yes.
air gap.
Oh.
And then this piece of wood goes up and I kind of orient it towards giving a shadow here towards the hottest part of the day, and hoping that possibly, I can cut the internal heat down and get some birds out of this. But do you know if something like this is just too complicated for them, or are they going to go, oh, that's too much, I don't want to deal with that? I even put a perch on top. I might have gotten carried away here. And then one more thing. And then I found a piece of firewood that had an already hole in it, and I put that on the front of the box. I can still get into it and clean it out.
oh, yeah.
Wow.
Good.
So the question is, do you think this is too complicated?
Well, you're the one that's doing it, so I'm sure the birds.
No, I'm not interested in me. I want to know what the birds like, Mr. and Mrs.
Well, they certainly want to be comfortable. So if the temperature gets over 104, I think 104 degrees in the boxes, it's too
They'll
hot.
abandon.
Yes, or it will kill the fledglings in there. So what you have on the back is something that similar to what we have on the back of some of our boxes that have bigger exposure, although it's pegboard that David says they call it. That's on the back of ours, and there is the gap between the box and the pegboard.
Right.
That also creates a little bit of circulation. Yours, being a solid piece of wood, has benefits and detractions because it could trap the heat in there too.
Right.
But
Well,
it's better than.
there is the gap in there, so hopefully,
I'd actually mentioned, I'd mentioned 2 things. The air gap is a good idea. They use it a lot on the barn owl boxes to try and get ventilation and stuff for them. But maybe doing a double layer on the roof so that you have your roof and an air gap in a roof might be more effective as well. But I also would not recommend putting a perch of any kind above that, because that's someplace a sharpshin or a Cooper's hawk could just hang out and wait till the
okay.
feed.
All right. I'll put up
Thank you, Laura.
I'll put up some razor wire.
It's like a restaurant.
I thought it was
Do you have an opinion or any data that suggests what you did was beneficial? When you asked, is it worth doing? But the question, I think, is, was it effective?
Have you tried it yet?
I'm sorry, I didn't get that question. Was it for me?
Have you
I don't know.
tried it yet? Have you had a season where the birds used it?
No, and this one's brand new. I haven't put it out yet. I have another one that nobody's even showed up to look at it. So
Okay.
I don't know. And then this box, I've made a little bigger, wider, and a little deeper. So this is my first one that I was doing. So my newer ones are a little bigger, and I've had really good success with those, but not last year. It was awful. I had a lot of immortality, and it wasn't good. And the year before wasn't so great, though.
I really appreciate your information because we had fewer birds on Highway 108 and more birds on Highway 49. And to answer your question about, we have stretches of that trail that are in just the wide open fields, and we have some boxes that are well camouflaged under the trees, and they all get used.
Okay, because I've been putting them in the open to see, so,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what they really want.
right, okay.
Oh, I couldn't hear your
Oh.
question.
What's his name, since he can hear your voice better than mine?
Oh,
I don't know.
are you Patrick? What is your name?
Oh, my name?
Yes,
No, my name is Ted.
Ted, very good. Thank you, Ted. You gave us a
Sure,
lot of good information.
yeah.
Yeah, nice.
All right.
It's nice to hear that people are doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we're moving on, but Margaret is still.
So next.
Oh.
See if the
Next,
hearing is
next
still back.
slide.
I heard 10.
So up. It's a little dude with the bird sticking out.
Yeah,
It's on the top.
there we go,
Well, there you go. There you go.
Oh.
So the benefits of monitoring, why do we monitor? I mean, to me, it's like holiday. So you go, there's like nothing there. You go back the next week and there's a little grass. You're like, oh my gosh, I wonder what's in there. And then you go back the next week and you see a bird kind of coming in. And then you go back again later and you start seeing eggs and then the fledglings. And so monitoring is really cool. It's fun, it's exciting. We have a great time. It's like every time we go out, I'm like, I wonder what's in there. I personally enjoyed the little mice that we had, and they had many young mice.
Who then went to multiple.
Yeah, no, they were only in one. But it was really fun. And, you know, you get more data on the bluebirds and other birds that are nesting in the area. So that's good knowledge to have. Like Gail was saying, we go out, I think it was in the fall or earlier the year, we went back in the fall, I guess, cleaned out all the boxes. So we're starting at baseline. So the spring we'll probably check one more time before they actually start nesting, make sure it's cleaned out, maybe evict mice if they're there, I don't know. And get ready to start monitoring for the boxes and to see what's out there.
Are the birds resistant to disturbance?
They don't really seem to care. We have pretty much the tree swallow and the ash-throated flycatcher are the ones that we have, and they kind of dominated. This was our first year last year, so this is a new trail for us, or new doing it for us. And it seemed like the swallows and the flycatchers got there earlier because we didn't have a bluebird until later. Way later in the season, but we certainly had multiple ash-throated flycatchers and swallows. And yeah, there is that culvert there, and the whole culvert is lined with swallow nests, and they dominate the two nests on either side.
But they seem pretty tolerant.
Yeah,
And we're very careful too.
yeah.
We don't, you know, if somebody's flying around and agitated, we don't go.
Are you consistent with your visits?
Yes.
Or monitoring
Yep.
like once a week
Yep.
or?
Yep. Yeah,
We
we go out
shoot
once a
for,
week.
we shoot for 7 to 10 days for
Yeah.
our schedule, but yeah.
And unless they've hatched, then we kind of wait for 2 weeks because we don't want them to freak out and jump out and do all that. But yeah, we are very consistent in the monitoring, and like I said, it's like a holiday. You go out and it's like, well, what's out there now? So yeah, there's a lot of great information that you can get in the monitoring.
Moving right along.
Okay. Are you done? All right, so I just was going to talk a little bit about the process, and that not for us, but for the birds. A male bird will choose the nest box that he thinks is best for his family, and then he will sing to attract the female, and then she will decide whether or not she thinks that's a good place to build the nest. And the female will build most of the nest, and while she's doing the work of building the nest, he will be foraging for food. So the nests are usually completed in about 6 days. And so when we're monitoring in the middle of that, we can sometimes find a box that has very little grass in it. And you know that one is becoming ready, and come back a week later and nothing has changed. They may have decided we don't really like that one, let's go choose a different one. So we have choices by having 24 boxes out there. The eggs are laid generally in the morning, and because of that, monitors are discouraged from going to the boxes in the morning because that's most likely the time that new eggs would be laid. And you don't know, is this going to be a clutch of 4 or a clutch of 7? And they lay 1 egg per day until she's done. So you're not quite sure when she's going to be done until you come back later and she's sitting on a nest of eggs. So the eggs, the bluebird eggs are so beautiful. They're that pale blue oval, about 7/8 inch long. And the reason I put that in there is because robin's eggs are also that beautiful blue, but they are larger than the bluebird eggs. Not that a robin would fit in the hole in his box, but just so that you know when you see the eggs, they are equally beautiful but different sizes. What David and I found that really confused the heck out of us is when we thought we were looking at a bluebird nest and then all of a sudden the eggs are white. And we can't understand why the eggs are white. And in reading, I learned that 7% of bluebird eggs are white. So, and there's no pattern to that either. Birds who lay blue eggs will next time lay the white one. You might have 1 white egg in a clutch of the rest blue. We haven't found that to be true. That would have clarified it a little better for us, but
So you think that's because of what they eat?
that, you know what I read, they could not distinguish the reason. And they said it didn't seem to have a pattern with the birds themselves, whether the next time they were going to be that way or whether the offspring were then going to lay white eggs too. It's just sometimes happened. So obviously there's some reason, but we don't know it. The incubation period usually begins after the last egg is laid, but again, it depends on the weather. If it's really hot, the incubation period will be more on the 12-day side, that the temperature will heat up faster. But if it's cooler, those eggs could sit there for a little while before she decides that it's time to start incubating them. The nestlings are usually brooded during their first 6 days. Both parents will feed them, the little fledglings, before they fledge, and that's usually 18 to 22 days. And we don't check, once we know that the birds have reached the age that they are fledglings, we don't check the box anymore because for fear of premature fledging, that we would be the cause of the bird falling out of the box. And that, of course, is the opposite of what we're trying to do. So there's lots of variations, and these are just guidelines.
Okay, and when you say that the nestlings are usually brooded during the first 6 days, that means that the mother or the father is sitting on the nest, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Generally the mother, the father's out getting food, but because the eggs have hatched, but the babies are still so small, she's still sitting there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Gail, even if the eggs, if there's 7 eggs and they're laid over a week until she sits on them to incubate them, then they all mature at the same time?
Yes.
Oh.
And that's the idea. Yeah, when she sits there, she'll bring the temperature up and incubate them, and so that they will hatch around the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I really like that shot. You put 2 more of those barriers.
Yeah, and that's the reason I shot this too. You can see this nest is really deep. There are probably a couple of clutches in there, and we have the reducer hole pieces on there. There are 3 of them on that. It could be that the woodpeckers have beat the crap out of the first 2 and they just had to be covered up again. I don't know why, but yeah, that was an example. Now this is a bluebird nest. You can see the grass in it. What it's made from is really
What would you have there if it was an nest for the flycatcher? That would be different material?
The flycatchers are, go ahead.
It's the fur, so you'll have almost like little balls of fur they make with it. They just kind of, so it's pretty obvious. It's not
Yeah.
grass at all. It's very little grass. It's balls of fur.
Are they getting
Very
the fur
stiff.
off the cows or?
Yeah, there's cows right near where we are.
How do they shed? They invent other things
Oh, yeah.
fur, so they
Yeah.
shed their fur. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So we've talked about a lot of this already, but like we said, we check our boxes weekly, 7 to 10 days right in there. We don't want to go any farther because things happen. You know, once things start rolling, it happens pretty quickly, and we don't want to hit something at the wrong time. So we really want to, you know, figure out when the eggs are laid pretty quickly, when they're hatched, and then we don't want to disturb them after that. When we go up to a box, we usually, you know, we're walking up there, we're not trying stealthily coming into the box. We tap on the side of it because we want, if the mother's in there, we want her to leave if she wants to leave. Sometimes we tap on it and she'll stay. It just really depends on that timing, but we want to be as least impact the birds as least as we can. So
And I usually say cleaning service.
yeah. Which I think helps. Although we don't do a lot of cleaning. And then we have a very detailed, nice data sheet that Gail has that, you know, basically note everything that we find there. So it's really nice. It's very easy to do. So we really like that.
Can you go back, Barry?
Go back.
And then if we, you know, Dale noted here too, if we, you know, sometimes you can see how tall those nests can get. And we're talking about, you know, that depth and if something can reach in and get it, a bird or whatever. And so sometimes you might actually have to lower those nests, especially after, you know, 3 clutches. You can see they don't just build right on top, they actually build another nest on top of that other nest. So sometimes carefully trying to take out the bottom so that the top can stay. So we haven't had to do that yet, but I can see
I
that
have.
could happen. Yeah, it's definitely obvious it could happen because these things get really tall. All right, so monitoring don'ts.
I'm gonna pass.
Basically, you don't want to check the box, you know, you want to check the box after the chicks are 12 days old because we, again, don't want them falling out prematurely. That would be defeating the entire purpose of what we're doing. We never handle the birds, like Gail said, these are all protected species, and if you know, it's illegal. So you're breaking state and federal law. Plus, it's likely that the parents would then, you know, not go with, you know, not be with them anymore. So you can just basically
This
kill them.
is poop, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job.
He does seem to have a one-track mind, doesn't he?
They're not like the owls.
So there's no, well, there's a few feathers, but I just remember when you got into the swallows, yes. The tree swallows, not to be confused with other swallows. They had all these white feathers, which were pretty.
Yeah, those nests are from the last cleaning at the end of the season. Now, when the parents are there, they clean out the nest.
Oh, they do?
They do. They'll take that poop out and remove it. Yeah, I wanted to point out in this particular slide, can you see the twigs and how different this is from the last one we were looking at? This is a house wren nest.
Oh.
It has some feathers in there, doesn't it?
Yeah, they pick up a lot of debris.
Yeah.
And I would have liked to have saved that nest for you to see with the others. I'm gonna dispose of these. I just saved it for you to all look at. Thank you.
And
Because there's a lot of poop.
the only other thing I'll talk about on this is don't leave a trail. So, which we just.
What does that mean, a dead end trail?
So it means like, don't just walk right up to the nest, you know, and just, you know, because it basically you could potentially leave predators there. Because if somebody's following you, a scent, they are going to go right to the nest. So you might run past it, circle back and come around to it. So it's at least a little less being like, oh, look, they stopped right here. This is where I want to be. There's something here. And so that was something actually we just learned tonight. It's not something, we will be practicing that better in our future checks.
So do you look around to see if there are jays, for instance, around?
Yes,
Yeah,
we had
absolutely.
crows
Yeah.
around too, and they are also could be a problem. But yeah, we do. When Katie and I went one time, was it last year? We had an owl that came out as we came in. Yeah, it was in the trees, not at the box.
Yeah, and we look too, because even if sometimes the birds are flying around and we'll just walk by. Because if they're agitated, we don't want to add to that, so we're just moving on.
Yeah, there's a lot of outbreaks and probably shouldn't move it.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
It's getting late, so
Oh,
probably-
yeah, okay, yeah, we need to
Wanna
get
go to the
going.
next one?
Yeah. Okay, we'll go right through these quickly. These are just some of the potential competition or usurpation that we could have. Maria and Margaret found mice in their box. David found acorns and bats. We have found bats twice in our boxes. And some of these are just competition. They're not for bluebirds, but they're still wonderful nesting birds that we're happy to have. It's the starlings and the house sparrows that we don't want to house. Go ahead.
In
Yes.
terms of the oak titmouse, has anybody had experience where they have an oak titmouse and the bluebird nesting boxes, separate boxes, but fairly close together?
Yeah, we have
Would they tolerate one another?
We have them at our house where we have titmice and bluebirds, not on our trails. They compete for the boxes, but they will nest close together.
So normally I keep my bluebird boxes, 100, 200 feet apart, but because the oak titmouse is under pressure and they say that their population is declining here, I want to put up some oak titmouse boxes with the smaller hole that the bluebirds can't get in. And I was just thinking, well, is it okay for me to put those boxes closer to my bluebird boxes, or do I need to keep them a couple 100 feet away? I just wanted to.
Well, what do the titmice eat?
They eat insects. They eat seeds too.
Are they ground feeders?
I've seen them on the ground. Yeah, I have, but not like a sparrow.
He likes to do it too.
Not ground feeders. That's the reason that the wrens and the bluebirds can nest near one another because or the swallows, I should say, not the wrens. The swallows, because the swallows are aerial eaters.
Yeah.
Bluebirds are ground eaters, so they're not competing with each other for food. So we'll be interested to learn what happens when you put your boxes close together.
I actually put a oak titmouse box up relatively close to my bluebird boxes, and the hole's too small for my bluebirds. They won't get in there.
Yeah,
so I'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll be interested to learn. Okay, go ahead, Barry. These are some of the predators that we talked about, of course, the sparrows and the starlings, but it's also important to know that hawks eat songbirds, and it's an important part of their diet, and we, of course, are in favor of most birds. We like the hawks too. So the kestrels, 8% of their diet is small birds, and then you have the Cooper's hawk, 55% of their diet is small birds and predominantly house sparrows. And the sharp-shinned hawk, 96.5% of their diet is songbirds. And David has an aviary at our house with zebra finches, and we have had it attacked by the sharp-shinned hawk 3 times now. It hasn't gotten anything, of course, but they do go there. The house wrens and the tree swallows are competitors, which we've talked about. And then the other critters that could be a problem, I should mention cats, but if you have cats, we hope that they're indoor cats only, because they kill millions of songbirds during the year. So both domestic and feral, and people say, oh, my cat doesn't kill birds, but they do.
You talk about parasites and insects, Nancy. Do you see much of that in the boxes?
Ron and Barbara talked about the fact that we could have ants. We haven't had a problem with it.
We've had ants.
Maria and Margaret have in theirs. Did you, Jean, when you were checking?
One or two times we had ants, and we had talked about going in there with alcohol or something, but we never did.
I think so, isn't that?
Yeah, my thing is, even with like, bleach would kill anything, but then I would think the smell would drive the birds
Yeah,
away.
yeah.
So
Right.
we were real careful. We didn't put anything, but we talked about it, but we didn't do it, so.
Ron and Barbara said for us to bring a bar of soap and just rub it on the inside or the bottom of the box too, and that would keep the ants away.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay, Barry, you can move on.
So on your predator list, I don't see bears, and I had an issue with bears.
Actually, if we did, we sure didn't know it.
And if you
Well,
did-
I have like 13 boxes, and last year I went out and I checked them. You know, this is when they were nesting. They were actively had young in them, and I went out one week. I checked them every week, and I had 4 boxes that were literally ripped apart.
Wow.
Everything, the contents, the nests were still there, but the young were gone. And I didn't know whether it was, I have bear, I have bobcat, I have, mountain lions. But that same week, my neighbors had their chicken coop ripped apart, and they had on their trail cam, they had a bear. So I'm pretty sure that it was a bear that literally ripped those apart. So I wasn't sure how I was going to deal with it. I didn't put the boxes back up where the bear had, ripped them apart. I moved them to other places. But there were boxes that were maybe within 200 feet where he didn't touch them. So I left them. So I don't know what's going to happen this year. But, I know he's still there. I've had CAL FIRE out here, and they've said they've seen the bear tracks out there.
Well, just leave your garbage can out and he'll take that instead.
Tracked him?
Just kidding. You
Yeah, I
can,
don't.
Barry, you can switch this slide.
I have a question.
Yeah,
In the winter time, when the boxes hopefully are clean, I read that it's common for various species of birds to occupy a nest box, different species. Has anyone ever seen that?
I've read that too, but what I also read is birds prefer to perch in trees in the winter time. They would rather perch than be inside a box like that.
Well, on my boxes, I check them sometimes in the winter, and I definitely see bird poop in there. So I know that there's something in there that's been, using it as a winter, like over the night.
Nut-owls, woodpeckers,
Refuge.
Yes.
What, Laura?
nut-owls, woodpeckers. They
Nut-owls,
use them as
woodpeckers.
bolt holes. During the winter, they go into nest boxes and spend the night, and they make a lot of noise going in, which never made much sense to me. I would have thought they'd try to do it quietly and surreptitiously, but they seem to announce their presence, and then they pop into the box to spend the night. So
Thank you for that. Okay.
Thanks, Laura.
All right, so I just want to say that here's a picture of Maria Margaret and David's shop building these boxes. We are having a lot of fun doing it. It's nice if you have a volunteer job that you enjoy. And it's also a wonderful wildlife success story. Remind you that all of you volunteers who are Zooming with us tonight, and those of us that are monitoring the boxes are conservationists, and we're always looking for more volunteers. So if people are listening to this program or here in the audience, we would love to have your support. We have boxes here that we'd be happy for you to share with you. We think it's a great activity for families, for young people. So encourage families to do that. We have boxes for sale, and we have one kit for sale if there's a family that wants to go through the process of assembling their own box. I wanted to thank David, Maria, and Margaret for the time that's spent making the boxes, and all of you who helped make boxes. Tom has brought a bunch of boxes too. And just to mention that the pine that our boxes were made from came from Don Moore at Twain Hart Tree Farm. So thank you, Dawn, for that too. All right,
Well, thank you very much.